Hey everybody, happy Wednesday. It is 9:15 and around 7 o'clock. These videos are, or this video is for ACC 204 taxation, federal income taxation. I will want to go over a few main topics on the slides because we had a few questions on the homework, which is great. If you have questions on the homework, email me or text me or do both. We could set up time via Zoom. We can, I do have office hours physically in the building at NECC in Spurk 201 from 9 to 10 a.m. And then I can also make an appointment Wednesday afternoons if needed. Just let me know. We could schedule it via text. In addition, I'm on campus Tuesdays and Thursdays. So if early in the morning, so if you need time, want to be there physically, we can set up an appointment. I don't have official hours, but I'm happy to make appointments as needed. And then also virtually, we can meet anytime. So any questions, happy to set up a Zoom meeting, happy to answer via email, set up a phone call. But I will be posting these videos in the module, mid week towards the end of the week as we progress. And I'll base them on some of the questions that I do get. So please ask questions. So with that said, let me hop into the slides this week. So this week, we are in chapter 3, module 2. And if we open our slides, we're in the chapter 3 slide. So I'm not going to go through the whole presentation, the whole lecture. I just want to highlight a few items. There may be 2 videos. I'm going to post an announcement once these are complete. Because I might break it up, but let's kind of take it from here. So this week we are talking about how do we calculate income tax, right? The total tax due, and then how do we calculate how do we calculate our total taxable income, right? I skipped to the end. How do we calculate our total taxable income? Which is our income minus all of our exclusions, minus any deductions from our gross income to equal our AGI. So it's called AGI, our adjusted gross income. Our adjusted gross income up here at the top is the basis of our income. So we get to deduct things like exemptions, which we talk about in this chapter. There's other income items that we could potentially deduct, maybe any losses. We could deduct any losses up to $3,000 against income for sale of property and things like that. So there's items that we could deduct from income that are specifically held at the income level. So we start out with our total income. We deduct all of our exclusions to get to gross income. Any other deductions, and then we get to AGI, which is adjusted gross income. And this is what we're going to base our top line tax income at. From there, we go into deductions. So this chapter, we talk a lot about deductions. And we have itemized deductions. And when we get into itemized deductions, we'll talk about this as we go, the specific itemized deductions that we can choose. And these deductions are typically, it's expenses that we've incurred, whether it's interest expense on a mortgage, whether we have any deductions for medical, things like that. There's a whole host of deductions that we can itemize, right? Or if we don't have enough deductions, itemized deductions, we could choose the standard deduction. And the standard deduction, we're using the 2020 rates. The standard deduction for individuals is $12,400, right? And then for married, it's at a higher rate. We double that. But the single rate is $12,400, and that's for folks that earn gross income above a certain level, and people that are not dependents, right? If they're not a dependent of somebody else. And if they make an income above a certain level, then you're allowed the standard deduction. We are going to talk about either in this video or a subsequent video that I'll post online, the scenarios where we would have less than the 12,400 if we're single. There are scenarios that we actually might have less of a deduction, standard deduction, and scenarios where we have more. And there was a problem that we did, I believe it was problem 3-21. I had a couple questions on that, where we specifically asked in the homework the different types or different situations where the standard deduction could be less than the 12,400 in scenarios where it could be more, right? So we'll talk about that. Whoops. And then we have our personal exemptions, our qualified business income, there's deductions there. We'll talk about more of that later on in subsequent chapters. And that gets us to our taxable income. We then deduct any tax credits, which finally gets us to the tax due. So we finally get to this tax due, which is the adjusted gross income minus our standard deduction, minus all the personal exemptions, minus or plus all of our investment capital gains or losses, minus any personal exemptions, and minus any credits, and then finally we have a tax due. So here you'll see the chapters that we cover some of these items. So income we talk about in chapters 3 and 4. The exclusions we'll talk more about in chapters 5. The deductions to AGI we talk more in chapters 6 through 9. These are the top line income exclusions. Down below we get into our standard deduction, and this chapter is primarily on the standard deduction. This chapter 3, we also talk about personal and dependency exemptions. And then in the following chapters 6, 9, 10, and 11, we get into the itemized deductions because there's a lot of meat there to get through. So this is the formula for taxable income. I'm going to skip through for a minute. And next I want to talk about I'm going to talk about here briefly deductions for individual taxpayers, right? So we have deductions for adjusted gross income and deductions from adjusted gross income. The deductions for adjusted gross income will be at the top line, right? These are the deductions that we see, here up above, and then down below we have our deductions from adjusted gross income. So the deductions for adjusted gross income, before I mentioned the top line, bottom line. So the adjusted for gross income, which we talk about more in chapter 5, are deductions that happen above the top line. And these deductions get us to the actual adjusted gross income. The deductions that we're going to talk about tonight are mostly on the deductions from adjusted gross income. And particularly, we're going to talk about the standard deduction. We're going to talk about the standard deduction because the homework focuses on this area where we talk about the standard deduction. So I'm going to stop this first video here. And then I'm going to kick off the next video on the standard deduction. So let me do that now. And then I will start the next video in